So if you'll notice, there's not really any separation. So like, for example, let's say you have a 150-page Space Mill good bad file, and you want one card that says Space Mill Key to Hedge, and it's on page 73, and every page either says link or impact. You're going to be looking through that file for a long time to find that one card. You only have 8 minutes of prep time, and obviously you don't want to spend most of your prep time looking for the articles that you want to read, which is why I think it's really useful to separate the parts of your file. For example, all of this stuff is just kind of together, but you'll notice on the final file, then it's separated into the uniqueness section, the links section, the impacts. That kind of helps you when you're looking for an argument. You know, okay, let me go to the impact section first, and then I can start searching there for whatever impact I want to read. That way you don't have to, spend a lot of time looking through the index. Also, this is really important, I think, whenever you are putting out your evidence, is that you have already read this evidence. I assume that if you've cut the card, you've already read the evidence. I really hope that you're reading it. Hopefully you're not just finding articles and cutting out paragraphs. You should read the evidence because it'll help you know what arguments you're making, what arguments it answers. But if you're already reading the article, you should go ahead and underline it. You, being the person who was assigned this, would probably know more about this argument than everyone who will just be receiving this. And it helps you a lot before round, because if you get this, for example, in the 1NC, and let's say you didn't realize it wasn't underlined, you're going to start the debate, you have two options. If you get this, you're ready to give your speech, and it's not underlined. You can either read the entire card, which will take you a lot of time, especially given that probably not every sentence in the card makes the argument you're trying to make in the debate round. Or the other option is that you would just cut it off at a point and mark it until the that's where I stopped reading. And then you run the risk of not actually making an argument because you have read the part that's like NASA announced on Sunday that it's made an important discovery. This discovery will change the way we look at space development. And then you mark the card and you're like, there. Uniqueness. Obviously not an argument. So it's really helpful and really important that you underline your evidence. Now I understand that there are deadlines to make and that underlining is not like, I guess, the first priority. But I think that it can be pretty much agreed that at a minimum, your shell should be underlined. Any cards in the 1AC or 1NC front line should probably be underlined. And then, the more of the file that you underline, the better. I know that on our squad, we have a policy that a completed file is not completed unless all of the evidence is underlined. I think that's just in general a good rule because really it's hard to use evidence that's not underlined. It just makes it a lot easier for you to do everything. I guess one of the final things that I'll say about having a complete file is make sure that you don't have gaping holes in your argument. I would say that whenever you are cutting this, your lab leaders will tell you kind of what the deadline is for having your file done. I would say kind of mentally, just take a day off of that. Try and have your files done a day before. That way you can look at your file and be like, oh, I actually realized I only have one link card. It's actually not talking about space. I probably need to take a day and fill in that hole because this file isn't really usable because I have 50 impacts to why space debris is really bad, but I can't want to link argument to why more space exploration will cause that to happen. So the best way to avoid holes is kind of try and finish your file, even if not a day early, try and have it done like maybe by the afternoon so that you have your night session to fill in those holes. And also stay in contact with your lab leaders, the people in your groups. You'll be surprised how often people will wait until the last day of the evidence production phase of the camp to go to their lab leader and be like, oh, I actually have no idea what my assignment is. Can I turn it in next week? Or can you help me with this? Nobody is going to make fun of you for not knowing about the topic or not knowing how to make a file. Everyone at some point when you're starting out is new to this. Some people, I'm still not the best card cutter ever, I'll go ahead and say that. it's always a good idea to ask someone, for tips. Obviously, there's a lot of things that we cannot cover in an hour-and-a-half lecture. Cutting cards is kind of a skill that you develop over time. You'll learn techniques that help you as you kind of grow in debate and spend more time in it. And these techniques are kind of personalized. Everyone has their own way of doing things. And I think that's the best way to get better, is to kind of share your experiences and talk with other people. And that's the best way to get new kind of viewpoints on how to produce evidence. And that's all I really have to say about what a completed file should look like. I guess we have, the next one's supposed to start at like 10:30, right? Right. Does anyone have any questions? I feel like there's probably a lot that goes into putting out a file, to cutting cards, doing the research. And I feel like even if you don't want to ask a question, or you're embarrassed to ask a question, I'm sure that there's got to be something that you want to know about the resources here, or what goes into a file, or how to cut it up. So does anyone have any questions?
What's the Q&C overview about?
Overviews in the, I guess, 2NC or the 1AR or 2AC are basically, they do two functions. They first explain the argument. A lot of times in debates, at every level, people will kind of spend, a long time in the block or in the 2AC making arguments, but the judge in the back of the round has no idea what you just said because you're talking fast, you're kind of making nuanced arguments. So an overview really helps you kind of remind the judge what your argument is, kind of put it into context, and what it also does oftentimes is it gives you good kind of organizational place to do impact calculus. So like at the beginning of the dispatch, you can be disadvantage outweighs the case, turns the case, here are the reasons why you should evaluate the disadvantage. That's an important part.
For example, here, this is obviously the explanation, and then here's the impact calculus down here. That's kind of the way that a lot of people kind of conceptualize the overview. And so hopefully your lobbying work review to make overview for whichever model that you're working on. And there's not really a cookie cutter way to do it. And there's different ways to do it, different arguments, different ways to counter plan, syntax, as well as things on how to do them. I'm trying to stay very clear.
I have a card cutting question. Do y'all have any helpful hints about if you find a PDF that's locked? How do you get the card from the PDF into the lock?
Okay, everyone should put this in your notes. Unlock-pdf.com. If you save the PDF to your desktop, choose the file. For example, I have one that's locked for the college topic that I didn't save the unlocked version. This one right here is locked. You open it in here, unlock the file, and...
First of all, if anyone doesn't know what we're meaning by this, unlocked PDF, it's just a PDF that you copy and paste out of. And then so whatever you're making, there's an option in Adobe, Acrobat, or whatever it's called, and publishers stop you from taking your stuff. But there's this handy website that you can be able to copy and paste.
It's even handier and handier when it works properly without...
No, sometimes it takes a little while, depending on how long the PDF is, and how many people are on the internet at the same time. So maybe at most it takes 30 seconds to a minute. So don't think, oh no, it's not working. Just be patient. Go put another card while you're waiting, something like that.
Also, sometimes PDFs will not be in a searchable format just because they're scanned to previous things. There's software available. I believe that the computer labs have OCR software. It's basically just software that will scan the PDF and then recognize the characters and turn it into text. So if you have a PDF, it's like somebody scanned something but it was kind of crooked, or they didn't use the software to recognize the letters. I believe that the library and the computer labs have the software to kind of turn that into a searchable document.
Are there any more questions?
Oh, I forgot to move things. Okay, even though it says secured in the top, I can now select.
But you can't do it. All right, so I think anything you want to say?
Yeah, let's thank Hunter and Amy. And go ahead and stand up, get a drink of water, use the bathroom if you need to. You have about 10 minutes before we have our next session in this room. 10 minutes.
If you're in the McCullough and Amy Schade lab, review your article.